Hello and welcome to Boston Magazine's Taste, presented by Stella Artois. I'm Scott Kernan, food and entertainment editor here at Boston Magazine, and tonight we are celebrating the final virtual event of the series with my friends Haley Fortier and Kristie Weiss of Nathálie Wine Bar and Haley.Henry. And it's going to be a celebratory, informative Winedown, if you will, because what better way to close out a long week than with a bottle or two of wine. So, before we dive in, I want to remind you that your taste ticket also includes our Taste Passport program, brought to you by Maker's Mark, which provides access to exclusive dining and takeout deals at over 60 local restaurants through December 30th. Now, personally, I am definitely making it my mission to visit as many as I can, and I highly encourage you, your friends, and family to do the same because restaurants desperately need our support right now more than ever. So if you have friends or family who haven't purchased a Taste Passport yet, we'll be continuing to sell them for the remainder of the program. There's still plenty of time to get out there, to get involved, and to support your local businesses. In fact, the proceeds from the purchase of all taste tickets will be donated directly to Mass Restaurants United, which is an incredible group formed by independent hospitality professionals that are advocating for their industry and planning solutions to rebuild in the time of COVID-19. Now, I know that Haley and Kristie have a delicious lineup of wines and cheese awaiting us. But first, please stay tuned for a brief word from our program sponsor, Maker's Mark.
It's not easy crafting the distinctive full-flavored taste of Maker's Mark. Getting all our water from our very own limestone filtered lake. Getting red winter wheat instead of the usual rye from this one family farm. And aging to taste by constantly sipping bourbon. Wait, all this sounds pretty nice, actually. No wonder we've been doing it this way for so long. This season, give our best to yours.
All right, welcome back to Boston Magazine's Taste, and I am now joined by owner-operator Haley Fortier and managing partner Kristie Weiss of Haley.Henry and Nathálie Wine Bar. Hello, how's it going? Welcome.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Hello.
Doing very well. Doing even better now that we're all here together because I've always wanted for us to sit down and have a little glass of wine and chit chat. And now's our chance, hey, if it's over Zoom, so be it.
Yeah. And also what a weekend to be celebrating too as well. So this is good that we have all these bottles of wine and cheese open.
I am.
I'm happy about it.
I am so ready. Now, before we dive into the tasting, just want to take a moment for folks who haven't had a chance to visit the restaurants and meet you or learn about what you do. Haley, I'll start with you if you could. Just a few words about yourself, how you came into the wine world, and why these were the kind of bars that you wanted to open.
That's a good question. So I had been working in the restaurant industry for a very long time. And prior to opening Haley.Henry, I had worked for Barbara Lynch for 8 years almost at Sportello. And the whole time I was there, I was thinking of places in the city that we didn't really have a lot of in terms of wine bars and kind of the wine scene. There's always restaurants that had really incredible wine programs, but there wasn't like a place that you could just kind of go in and immerse yourself into. And so when I was thinking of opening Haley.Henry, that's really what I was focused on, was bringing something to the city that wasn't here really yet. I mean, Belly Wine Bar was here, obviously. Spoke Wine Bar was here, but they were both not in Boston proper. So it was really trying to get something and add something to the city that way, and bring it in. And that was kind of the focus. And for me, honestly, it was also, I wasn't really concerned about like the back of the house type thing because I'm not a chef, which most people think I am, but I'm not. So for me, it was trying to open a wine bar that was sustainable in food that I could really run just on its own. So tinned fish was one of my loves. It wasn't here yet. Cheese, charcuterie, crudo, ceviche, all those things are kind of sustainable on their own. And that was kind of the whole concept. So that's originally where it all started. And then it kind of sprouted out from there.
Fantastic. Kristie, tell me a little bit about, how you discovered the wine world and how the two of you connected to be part of this team together.
It's so funny. You would have thought we've known each other for years and years. We've both been in the Boston food scene. I worked for Ming Tsai for quite a long time, and then also Barbara Lynch. But our paths never crossed. We have a lot of similar friends, but Heather Lynch, actually, who's a mutual friend of ours, said that I should meet with Haley because Haley was opening this wine bar. So we met, and I don't know, everything kind of made sense. Haley's vision was something that I was looking for, and I was just happy to be a part of it.
I love that. And something that I really love about Haley.Henry and Nathálie is the fact that although the two of you come from, finer dining backgrounds, right? Barbara Lynch, Ming Tsai, and although these are restaurants that certainly the selection is top shelf, no pun intended, they're also really accessible to people. Even for folks who might be otherwise feeling intimidated by wine, they can walk in there, they're going to get amazing wine. They're also going to maybe hear some like 80s pop or Biggie Smalls overhead, that kind of vibe to it. And I just wanted to ask you how intentional that was in terms of making it feel really accessible to people who might not otherwise know a tremendous amount about wine. Haley, tell me about that.
I think I know firsthand that's always been the intention. It's very, very intentional because we always feel like wine is just set up here at this bar that just needs to come off its pedestal. We wanted it to feel like you were literally walking into someone's living room and that you were being very graciously greeted that way. And so, there's not a lot of wine bars that you walk in and Biggie Smalls or Tupac or
Action
Bronson or A Tribe Called Quest are playing. And it was really important to kind of weave that all in there because part of the experience of both bars is that you just feel so comfortable there that you don't want to leave. And that's what starts the fostering of the relationships that we talk about all the time with our staff and like how you treat guests and the way they want to be treated. So it definitely went hand in hand. It was definitely a very intentional nod to do it that way.
I think it helped break down a lot of the barriers of people feeling intimidated about what is wine, how to talk about wine. And then from there, it's like not only the music helped with that, but our staff became so relaxed that they were able to talk about wine in a way that the guest understood, which was so important.
Right.
100%. And we're going to talk more about breaking down barriers in the wine world for sure. But since you already segued so nicely into the idea of being comfortable, what more comfortable place to sample some wine than in your own home? So let's dive in to our first selection. I will let you, Haley, you can go first, introduce this first selection for us.
Cool. Great. So at home, if you guys are following along and you came to Nathálie Bar to get these, this is 2019 La Villana Rosso or Rosé. This is a really cool story because the winemaker, her name is Joy Cull. She grew up in Connecticut. She was doing like a hospitality type degree at Cornell, and she ended up like breaking somewhere in between there, going to Italy to do harvest. And she fell in love with a sheep farmer. So the rest is history. She's been there ever since. She's about an hour and a half northwest of Rome. So it's pretty fun. But all of her labels, if you can see, have some sort of sheep cartoonage on them. And that's kind of homage to that whole situation. This is really fun because it's a winter rosé, but it's also unfiltered and it's unfined and all that. So if you shake the bottle or you look at the bottom of the bottle, you will see like all the particles in here. And people talk all the time about, natural wine, how some of it's unfiltered and what are the benefits of it, what are not. But the thing is everything's alive. So even if you open this bottle today, it's going to be very different tomorrow. So I know it's hard to like not drink the entire bottle in one sitting, but if you can hold off and like drink some of it the next day, you'll see the change because it's just it's really alive. The grape is Alatica 100%, which is a really indigenous grape to Italy. But also Kristie and I were talking earlier that usually this wine that she makes is a blend.
She's always wanted to do 100%, but because of the weather, she's never been able to have enough grapes at the end. So she's always had to blend. So this is the first year that she's so excited about this. She's so happy with how it came out.
Yeah, and it's very good.
Yeah, and it's something that she's worked really hard for since she started making wine in 2015.
Yeah. So to pair with this, we decided to pair the Bijou cheese, which is coming from Westerville, Vermont. It is pasteurized. It's a pasteurized goat cheese. So, I mean, we have it on our spoons here, but
so you can see there's like a little bit of casing. They're served in little like disc almost. So it's the smaller of the cheese, because I know two of the cheeses look quite similar.
Sure.
And they would be labeled though if they were getting them.
Yeah.
So, is yours labeled?
Mine were not labeled, but I can see your little. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. It's totally fine.
I specifically said label the damn cheese.
Emily, it was very busy when you came there.
Well, anyway, okay. Well, you didn't get your labeled cheese, but anyway, if you had to look at it, the brie, which will be up next, has like more of a whiter, long, like elongated. It's
more of a rectangle.
It's more gooier.
Sure.
So these little discs are aged for 1 month, and when you have them after they've been aged for 1 month, definitely they're creamy, a little bit pungent, but as they age longer, they get ooey and gooey and a little bit funkier, which I really enjoy. So again, like this wine, like Haley mentioned, this wine is really fun to taste, tomorrow after you've opened it, because it does change and evolve over time. I think it goes well with cheese evolving too.
Yeah, and it goes well now because this wine is so gripping, it really like takes the texture of the cheese and just kind of melts in all together, but you'll feel little poppy notes on your tongue. It's a great pairing, and it's a good thing to start with as well.
Fabulous. Kristie, would you do me a favor for folks at home? Can you show us once and for all how to taste a wine? The swirling, the nosing, let's
definitely. It's actually funny, when I'm getting a bottle at a table, I'm not usually tasting the wine. I'm only smelling it to see if the wine is flawed. So as someone's pouring, I'm swirling it to get everything alive and moving, and then just taking a big smell, and then knowing that the wine is drinking well. Because when you order a bottle of wine, you're not really ordering it to see if you like it. You already ordered the wine. I mean, it isn't like a buffet. We're like, nah, I'm not gonna take that one. So as long as it's good and it's not tasting, like we say, corked or gone bad, it's good to go.
And for people that don't know what that corked smell tastes like,
wet cardboard.
It's wet cardboard, but it's also like your grandmother's basement. It smells like almost mothballing, just very
the worst.
Yes, the worst. You'll know it as soon as it happens. But yeah, really get your nose in there.
Well, cheers.
All day round.
Cheers. But I love this wine. I think I really get a lot of guava, a really good acid running through it. It's really refreshing.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
We're gonna have to drink it because we don't have another glass.
I know.
And you mentioned, it's a lovely winter rosé, and people need to remember that rosé is not just for, the advent of spring, and then it has to go away when the cooler weather comes.
Yeah, I mean, definitely rosé, just screams summer in some regard. Obviously, a lot of Provençal rosés and ones that are crisper and more mineral driven, but in general, there are so many red wines now that you should be chilling more than usual. And there's a lot of people that are actually coming out with winter rosés because you're right. There's no reason not to drink them in the winter. They're still as dynamic and they're ever changing. So it's just something we shouldn't be cutting out of, 4 or 5 months out of our year.
Absolutely. And that cheese is fantastic. Tell me about why you felt the flavors of these two sort of married each other so well. Haley.
Like I said before, I felt that because this particular cheese kind of ages on its own as well, like over a couple of days. If you bought like a half pound and had it the first day and then really like had it a week later, it's kind of the same as the wine. But because the wine is so gripping in its own right, where it's unfiltered and it just has like, you know, those heavier notes than you would expect from a rosé, it really grabs onto the cheese and makes all of the flavors come out. So I thought that they were a really good pairing in that regard. I also like that she, being from Connecticut, is, you know, from New England, where the cheese is also from New England, being from Vermont. So it was kind of a good little nod to that part of it all, which we love.
She's someone we really champion, and we've served her for as long as we could get the wine.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I know that a really big part of the identity at Nathálie, in terms of the wine program, is about celebrating and amplifying female wine producers.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you a little bit about that as well. How did that become part of the mission and the identity of the restaurant?
So when Haley.Henry opened, it was always really the focus on small production wine. And it went either way because, you know, there's so many incredible winemakers from all over the world. So it wasn't like we focused more on female or men there, but it definitely was always 50-50. We tried to get it 50-50 as much as possible. When Nathálie was opening 2 years later, in 2016, we were, I think, politically involved in like a storm of things with the Me Too movement, with all the sexual harassment things that were going on, like the discrepancies, male versus female in the wine industry, and so many other things that were happening, that it made more sense that, you know, the bar was named after my grandmother. It was going to have a very feminine touch to it, where Haley.Henry, yes, it's still owned by a female, but it's very novel over there, and it's very shippy, and it's very like everyone grab everything and drink everything. And yeah, it's very piratey. And Nathálie Bar, it was just meant to be at this time that was so important to really focus on like female wine producers and really get them out into the spotlight, because they've been in the shadows for so many years. They've been part of family productions and industries for so many years, but you know, usually it's the male who has the family name that's on the label. And so it was really, really important that we kind of project that and just have a big sense of empowerment and feeling when you're walking in there. I mean, the first thing you see when you walk through the door is a pencil drawing of a very ambiguous, like, girl with no face. And you can think of it whatever you want. That's the whole point of it. It's how it makes you feel. So all of our glass pours at Nathálie Bar are always female produced. And then of our entire bottle list, it's about 85% female and 20% men. Because like I said, there's so many great producers out there, but it does lean so heavy on female producers.
I also think we definitely wanted to make Nathálie different than Haley.Henry, so it wasn't doing the exact same thing. Like we serve the same producers at those spots, but never the same wine at any list at any given time. And I think it was a way for us to differentiate like Nathálie as its own wine bar.
Right, which is good, because I always feel like if you're following someone from a different city, like one of my favorite chefs is Renee Erickson from Seattle. And if you're following someone from a different city and you go there and you go to all their places because you just want to see how everything's going, what are the differences? You can tell that they're owned by the same people, but what makes them different? And so people that are following Haley.Henry Bar, or following Nathálie, they can go to both bars and get a completely different experience, which was also really important.
Absolutely. I love that. And while we're on this topic, and before we move on to our next tasting, little book recommendation for folks. I haven't started it yet. I've only just started it, so don't quiz me. But Wine Girl by...
We're pumped.
James, can you see in the shot? There we go. If you're interested in learning more about women in the wine world, written by the youngest sommelier at a Michelin-starred restaurant. She was 21, and it's all about her career and the different challenges that she's faced, as well as some really, really fantastic highs as well. So put that on your book club list. All right?
The holidays are coming.
Yes.
Exactly. On that note, let's move on to your second selection. Tell us, Kristie, how about you go this time? Tell us what's coming up next.
We're doing a little bit of Riesling from Alsace in France, a family winery that's been around. Let me pour a little bit for Haley.
A lot, please.
It's been around for quite some time. The grandfather actually started it, and he wanted to make wine, but he couldn't make a living, so he actually made and sold shoes until they could get off the ground. But so now the basic winemaker his name's Jan, and he's the son of Andre and Anne. And he's really taking the winery to like a new level as far as being natural. He doesn't want to like plow and rake, and he thinks that disturbs the earth, and like he just thinks everything needs like peaceful interaction, and he's letting the animals, fertilize everything. And as soon as we tasted this, we were like, this is something that we felt good about serving.
But also, I think a lot of people, sometimes people kind of put a grape varietal in a corner, and if they've only ever had sweet Riesling, that's all they ever think about of Riesling. And this is like on granite soil and shale and stuff, so it's really mineral driven. It's really dry. It just is a different.
It's such a good
Riesling,
expression.
so it's a great expression for what it is. It's also the family vineyard has been around since 1979, but they went completely no sulfur in 2007. So all the producers that we have today are hand harvesters. If they are plowing the fields, they're using like their one horse or something. There's no machinery at all, and they all are very similar in that regard. So it was a good expression of all three wines that are really, really different, but come from the same farming practices, which is important too.
Absolutely. And for folks who don't understand too, could you just clarify what it means when people say naturally produced wine versus biodynamic is another word that gets used oftentimes in the same conversations? What's the sort of differentiation between some of these terms for us?
It's really hard because there's not like a one definition, or there's no national guideline. So, what we say is we serve natural wine that we basically from vineyards that are doing minimal intervention, no chemicals, as little as sulfur as they can, and also with respect to the environment.
Exactly. And just to differentiate between organic versus biodynamic is that organic is that you're not like spraying anything. You're not using pesticides and things like that to spray your plants and things like that. But biodynamic, you're literally like relying on nature. So you're not basically going out and watering. You're waiting for the rain to come. A lot of times people are picking the fruit from the vines at low tide or in the full moon, because that's when all the water is kind of out of the earth and you get the best expression of the fruit. So,
or they're planting
like so many things.
Yeah, herbs surrounding them to keep bugs away. They're naturally, cultivating an environment of growth, and also it's like the circle of life. So, they're providing food for the animals that are on the property. The animals are providing fertilization, and it's just that lovely circle.
People talk a lot too. I mean, the people that hear like bits and pieces of little things but don't really put it all together, they're like, what's the deal with the shit in the horn? Like blah, blah, blah. And basically what that is in biodynamic is that at the end of the season, they'll take a bull or cow horn and they will fill it with manure and bury it in the ground. And then in the spring, they pull it up, and it's the most potent, the most effective fertilizer that they then mix with water, and that's what they use to kind of fertilize everything. And it's a great practice that's been happening for years and years and years. But it's funny because some people just hear that and they're just so intrigued by it that they want to know more, as anyone would, I'm assuming. But
so there is really a lot of value in bull poop.
Right. And we work with some wineries that they're vegan and they only do vegetal compost.
Right.
So it's like, it's so interesting to see how different people are doing different things. I think for us, I love that we serve wine that tastes different every single year. And it's actually like a timestamp in time that, we didn't have any rain this year, so this wine tastes so different. And, we've had wines from, the United States where the fires are burning, and like you can taste that smoke and that ash in the wine. And it's like, you can't help but go back and be like, wow, this is because of those fires. Where, wines that maybe are not made that natural way, it's like they taste the same all the time and they're consistent. And some people like that consistency, but I love a wild ride. So it's very exciting.
Well, I'm loving this. Great. It's like an angel softly landing on my tongue. It's got that kind of vibe to it.
You're hired.
You're hired. What are you doing tomorrow?
My colorful language.
Great.
This is going with your brie.
Yeah, the Brie de Lyon, which is a sheep milk cheese that's pasteurized and aged for 1 month from the Alps.
From the Alps. And I think a lot of times with brie, there's so many different varieties of brie, but I think the good pairing for this is that it is really approachable. It still has like obviously texture and flavor, but it's really mild. And so it really brings out the notes of the granite shale and like all the minerality of the Riesling, which is really nice. You'll tell me in a minute when you've just
I like how creamy the brie is, and then that acid of the Riesling, and like Haley said, the granite, it is like, it's a match made in heaven. It keeps you going back from one to the other.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's delicious. Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday.
Right? Now, I'm curious too, in terms of New England as like a wine producing region, what do you see happening here that maybe excites you, or are we ever going to be kind of, a hot wine producing region internationally?
I think that we have already started to kind of build that foundation here. Deirdre and Caleb from La Garagista in Vermont, I mean, she definitely is the front runner. She paved the way, I think, for Vermont winemaking. And she's up in Barnard, Vermont, and she is regarded as a kind of a natural wine rock star in the natural wine world. And so it's been fun to kind of see her progression. I've known her now probably for a decade. Her and her husband used to own a restaurant in Woodstock as they were doing their winery, and then they closed that and they focused more on what they're doing now. And there's so many things coming out of Burlington. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's exciting to see, because I do think that we are making definitely a wave throughout the country, but also, nationally being known in other countries. And it's fun to see, because as you know, New England terroir and the weather, it's like last week it snowed 6.5 inches. Now it's 75 degrees out. Like, it's an interesting time to be a farmer at all, but to be a wine grower in New England is tough. So when you can kind of figure it all out and make it work and come out and produce some really interesting and really, incredible wines, I mean, that's in itself is an accomplishment. So I do feel like we're moving more in a direction, and obviously, like with global warming and everything that's happening, what will happen, 5 years from now, who knows? But I do think that we are definitely getting up there with the best of the best. Like
I'm excited to see where it's going to be at in 5 years, because I think now so many winemakers are trying new grapes to see what we can grow. And so every year, I mean, we're getting to try new things that they're like, this is the first harvest from this and that. And like, I mean, I think that we're just now getting that voice, and it's going to be like very telling to see what happens.
And also there's so many young winemakers just coming out of the woods, basically, people that are doing harvests for people in all parts of the world, and then kind of settling down where they want to be and coming out with it. And of the winemakers, at least even in the past year that we've either met at the bar or at Raw Wine or wherever, I mean, you're talking about people in their late 20s, maybe early 30s. Like, it's creeping up that it's like a younger generation starting to kind of do all this stuff. So that's also really fun to see.
You mentioned the terrain and the climate here in New England, and obviously that does make things, I'm sure, very challenging for wine growers. But at the same time, those are the elements that make, say, our cheeses so amazing and fascinating. The way all those things come together as one big chemistry set to make such amazing, vibrant flavors. I imagine, as difficult as it may be for growers, the same is true of our wines as well.
Yeah, the same is true. And just to echo what Kristie said earlier, you know, when you're getting a wine that's mass produced, there could be 240 different ingredients in there that the FDA has chosen that people don't have to write anywhere. So it's really like, here's your wine, here's a bag of something going in there so it tastes the same every year. We know our consumer. This is exactly what people are going to buy type of mentality. And the good thing about this wine and like the growing season, like you're saying, is that it is a snapshot of what has happened that year. And so she said earlier, you know, that we've had some wines from people and our producers from California and Oregon who literally, you know, Tony Cottore came out with a wine. He's one of, I think, the first, not first, but definitely like the grandfather of natural wine in California, in Sonoma. And he came out with a wine that you can literally taste the forest fire in. And this is what it should be, because this is what we're talking about. You're talking about drinking something from a place and having a really good representation of that. And yes, so the wildfires and the rain and all that, I mean, it's going to change every year. But to be honest with you, for me, and I know for Kristie, those are the exciting things, is we're excited about like when the new vintage comes out of something, because we're always looking for what the differences are between the previous year.
Absolutely. That's the really exciting part. No doubt. Yeah. No doubt. All right. Moving on to our third wine selection.
You better drink up.
Haley, tell me what we have going on here.
Okay. So this is a new producer for us. Her name is Laura Allard. She is from the Luberon in France, which is in Provence, like in southern Provence. Basically, there's only 1,600 bottles of this made. So let's just put that into perspective for a little while. And actually, the Riesling, there was only 1,300 bottles. And the Lavallana, the first rosé, I mean, she only has like 3 hectares, which is very small. So this is 100% Grenache. It's really interesting because she has only been doing her solo project since 2017. So this is like going on her 4th year of doing this. It's 100% Grenache. We paired it with the Goudenkaas, which is a cheese from the Netherlands, mainly because the Goudenkaas and Gouda cheese, just so everyone knows, is one of my favorites. So if
it's so good.
If anyone's wanting to buy me anything, Gouda cheese from Holland or the Netherlands is the way to go. I like crystallized cheese, which means that when it's aging, you're getting those like really salty little nuggets.
They're like little pockets of fun. It's so good.
We always say it's like pop rocks in your mouth, because it's just like not expected, but here it is. And the good thing about this is that Grenache, she is the kind of like we've been talking about, she only plows when necessary. She doesn't really prefer to do it ever. But she does it when necessary, just to aerate things and to keep things kind of moving. This Grenache, for some reason, just totally clasps onto the little crystals, and it just like explodes in your mouth, which is good, because this is more like a cherry-ish kind of stewed fruit, where this is just perfect Gouda. It's the perfect complement to one another, which is why
this wine is so interesting to me. I sometimes I taste it and I'm like, it's tobacco and it's a little bit of smoke, and then you get these plums and it's vibrant and racy.
It's very racy, like Kristie.
It's in good company, I think.
It is in good company. Yeah, it is. But it's a really small production. Like I said, she's a newer producer for us. And so we're always excited to kind of have either read about someone and then ask people where we can get it, or have our distributors come to us and be like, this is a new producer that we know that this is right up your alley. So it's really
and she has
fun
that
to have
story too that kind of resonates, I think, with a lot of people too. She started out, in hospitality. She did some catering. Her husband is a chef. They had a restaurant together, and she became so interested in wine. When they closed the restaurant, they were like, we're gonna try to make this wine. And she rented land for a while to get the grapes, and then now she has her own land, which is so great. And I don't know,
it's a good little story,
Absolutely. And again, a lovely wine. And this is going to sound super pretentious, and I'm still a small town boy at heart, but my gosh, so nuanced. Like, what is the word that I would use for these wines? Every time you take a sip, you can kind of find something a little different than your last sip. And that's, I think, what makes settling in with a glass of wine and some lovely cheese or whatever snacks you have on hand, really its own experience.
Yeah. And the good thing too is that, as you know, but I don't know if everyone else watching this knows, is one of the biggest things that we tried to do when the bars were opening was have our clients come in and really feel like they could get through the menu and they could drink through the menu. And so because of that, we were the first people in the city to develop a half bottle wine program where you can open anything on our list as long as you agree to 2 glasses of it. And it really gave people the options to really kind of get through the wine list and try some new things that they hadn't seen before. We have so many varietals that people have never, ever heard of. And for someone like myself, when I go out, I love to start with a cocktail, but then I might want white, and then I might want red. And if I'm by myself, that means I'm 3 bottles deep and I'm drunk. Right. So it's good for someone like me or someone else that just wants to get through a wine list and be able to get half bottles of everything, because it's just,
I think we say we want people to taste the rainbow.
Yeah.
You're able to get a glass of something you wouldn't normally get because you don't have to commit to a bottle. You actually just get to try new things.
Right. And then the people that do get the half bottles, the rest of that bottle is now available by the glass. So we always have some really fun things open. And, we've gotten to the point now, 4 years into it, with Haley.Henry being 4 and Nathálie being 2, that people just come in and they're like, we don't even want to look at the list. We do want to look at it because it's so great, but we trust you. We just want you to pour us something that's really fun. And that actually feels good because it feels like people trust us now. And we've kind of gotten that relationship to the point where people know that they're going to be drinking something really interesting like this.
It's great. It's also really fun to people have these preconceived ideas about what grapes taste like. And so when they're saying, I want something like this, and I want something like this, and then you pour them, say, a Riesling, they're like, we love it. I'm like, it's a Riesling. I would have never ordered a Riesling. It's so fun, to try new things and introduce people to things.
Yeah. We had a Pinot Grigio on the list that was slightly skin contact Pinot Grigio. And people were just I just don't want Pinot Grigio. And we're like, okay, we're just going to pour them this. I don't know, for some reason. It just happened to be middle-aged woman that we're all drinking it. So we called it Cougar Juice. And we actually put it on our menu as Cougar Juice. And everyone kept coming in and they're like, we want that Cougar Juice. And
it's so great. I love that people that come into the bar have such a sense of humor. We can laugh at ourselves and we can have a good time. And it is still to this day. That was year 1. Still, people are like, when are you bringing back the Cougar Juice?
We were at a restaurant the other day and they had the Cougar Juice and we're both like, they've got the Cougar Juice.
Cougar Juice.
Everybody wants Cougar Juice.
It's so exciting. Being the first natural wine bar in Boston, it's so exciting to see how the city has evolved and changed. And now you see other restaurants that now have a natural wine selection. It's been so amazing to be the first people to introduce that. And I'm so happy that everybody is caught on and everyone's got the bug.
Everyone has the bug, the drinking bug.
Absolutely. And I love too, you mentioned a moment ago, people trusting you to kind of take you on, an experience and tell you the stories and all that. And I think it's so important that people remember right now, as we're encouraging folks to support restaurants and these small businesses, that's not the kind of thing you can replicate at home. Those conversations and those little learning experiences. And, learning sounds stodgy and boring, but when it's with folks like yourself who can really give the personality and the color behind each of these stories, you can't get that at home. And that's what makes going out and having a real life conversation with someone such an important, special thing that we can't forget over wine, of course.
Cheers to that. Cheers to that.
100%.
100%. And I would put a little nod to Kat Soleri for that, to be honest with you, because when she started working for Barbara many, many years ago, she really took wine education and made it her beeswax. And that's a model that so many people that have left there do. Like, we have wine class with our staff. Every time something comes out, we write notes on it on Google Drive. They get it a couple days before. Then we all sit down and we taste it. So they've had everything at least twice. And it's all about education, and we're constantly learning ourselves. So it's been fun to be able to take that from an old job that I had and be able to kind of put it into where it fits now. But there's a lot to be said about education, because you can't have those experiences and you can't have that dialogue with people if you don't know what you're talking about. And that's super important.
And that's also, I think, because we provide that, it's a nod to our staff who takes ownership of that. They definitely study in their time off, and they want to know what they're talking about. And our guests are so thankful. And there's nothing better than a guest sliding into our DMs or emailing saying, like,
in a good way,
your staff is so great. Like, they found me the perfect wine, or like, this was so amazing.
They're
and
very,
like,
very good at it.
I mean, we both feel so lucky. Like, it's so great. And we're totally like dorks. I mean, this is what we want to learn about all the time. So
from one nerd to another.
Exactly.
I'm curious too. I wanted to ask, 2020, crazy year on so many levels, living through a pandemic, one issue among them. How is that affecting, or do we know yet how that's affecting just wine production in general in the world, in America, and how that kind of ends up impacting what you do as wine bars?
I think it's really affecting. And actually, I was telling Haley, I listened to an interview done with Jan from the Riesling that we tried, and he was saying, everything was shut down there, but he couldn't get labels and he couldn't get bottles delivered. And so that is like he's aging things longer than he expected. And, I'm curious to see what's going to happen, but we won't know that until, 2021, 2022 to see what happens. But it has to be affecting them.
Yeah, and I think the good thing that you said, I didn't hear this interview, but what I remember you saying about it was that the good thing for him was that he was actually in the vineyard a lot more than he would have been able to be,
Right.
because he would be out marketing or out doing, something else for the business. In terms of the bar, it's been interesting. We, as you know, it's like, the smart thing to do for us would be just to run through the inventory that we had when COVID shut everything down. But it's like, people that are coming to the bar want the new stuff. We want the new stuff. We want the new vintage. Is it irresponsible to buy some stuff when we don't know what's going to happen in a couple months, and we might be? It's there's a lot of questions. So
But I think we have to stay true to who we are, which I think that we're really good about that. I mean, if I'm really being honest with you, I have crazy anxiety, but Haley is positive Polly over here, which is great. But I think that when we talk about it all the time, it's like, the people that we love us, and we're so lucky that they're so dedicated to us, like, they want to see us succeed, and we can't deviate from what we were doing before, because we wouldn't be who we were.
Yeah. I mean, too, there's so many businesses that have done different things. Like, maybe they were fine dining and now they're a burger bar or whatever makes sense for them, and it's totally fine. But I feel like when people think of the bars, if they are willing to come out and they feel safe and responsible when they get there, we want them to feel like nothing ever changed. So for us, it's like, we want to give them that experience.
I feel like we want to be the reprieve, where you can come there and it's still okay to laugh, and that's okay. And I hope that we provide that environment for people where we're a little bit of an escape there, and we provide some normalcy,
Absolutely. And I won't keep you much longer today, and these have been amazing wines as well. I did want to just give a little shout out to Chef Alex, who creates amazing plates at.
We love Alex.
He would have been here today, but he had a previous commitment, so he could not be here this evening. Obviously, he's on the line right now, working at Nathálie Bar. But
He's doing some good things.
He's doing some amazing things at the bar. His food he's just been nailing every point. I know when you came in recently, you loved the shrimp. That's not going anywhere. Those shrimp are, I don't even know.
Those are the shrimp of life.
They are the shrimp of life.
I'll never take those away. Those, I've been dreaming of them ever since. And I would have left my plate if it was socially acceptable. I may have when no one was looking. You know, you never know.
Zero deference.
We won't tell him.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to Chef Alex. And thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. And we learned a lot about the restaurants, about wine, about cheese. And hopefully we will all be out there lifting glasses.
We hope so. We hope so. Here's to 2021 and beyond.
Yes. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Here's to that. Dang. Thank you so much. Great seeing you as always.
Bye. You too, Scott.
Take care. Thank you again for joining us tonight, Haley and Kristie. And to our viewers, thank you for tuning in all week for our first virtual taste event. Although this concludes our online programming, please don't forget that the Taste Passport program, brought to you by Maker's Mark, is active through the end of the year, and that provides access to exclusive dining and takeout deals at over 60 local restaurants. Personally, I'm making it my mission to visit as many as I can. I hope you will too. So if you have friends or family who haven't yet purchased a taste ticket, we'll be continuing to sell passport-only tickets for the remainder of the program. There's still time to get involved and get out there. The proceeds from the purchase of all taste tickets will be donated directly to Mass Restaurants United, an incredible group formed by independent hospitality professionals to advocate for their industry and plan solutions to rebuild in the time of COVID-19. So, as we sign off to this virtual taste, I will say cheers, stay safe, and happy eating. Bye-bye.